Good afternoon, and see people still streaming in. Welcome to our session on what's new in Azure Databricks. And we have something super exciting for you. We have three topics, really. We're going to have data intelligence platform overview, and we're going to have some interesting announcement on new Databricks features. And we're going to save the best on the lakehouse to tomorrow morning session, 9 a.m. sharp. So first, I want to start by introduce 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗶𝗫𝗳𝗁, CEO of Databricks. We're honored to have him with us online. And hi, Ali. Let me switch, sorry. Hi, Ali. Thanks for joining us and take your time out of your incredibly busy schedule. And you introduced the concept of data intelligence platform last year about this time. And hope you can share with the audience here in the room and online why is data intelligence platform so important and what is it all about?
Awesome. Thank you so much. Super excited about this. I'm really, really sorry that I cannot be there in person. Can you hear me, by the way?
We can.
We can hear you.
OK, awesome. OK, you know, it's actually, this service has now actually been in production since 2018. It's super successful. It's been absolutely game-changing for Databricks, the company. And it's built on a partnership that actually Satya Nadella kicked off when we met in 2017. And we've been keeping in touch, in close sync, over the years and making sure that this is really integrated as a first-party service with the whole Azure stack. So I'm going to present a few slides and tell you a little bit about Azure Databricks. Okay? All right, so let's dive in. So today, every company you talk to, they want to be a data and AI company. What I mean by that is it doesn't matter which vertical or industry you're in. You know that the future is going to be that your company is going to excel and beat the competition by leveraging data and artificial intelligence. But this is much easier said than done. So when I meet CIOs or CEOs and I talk to them, what they tell me is that their architecture, especially if it's a company that's been around more than, say, 10 years, is super complicated. They say we have way too many services. You know, we have data warehouses, multiple of them, multiple real-time solutions that are custom. Data science, we are storing our data in multiple places. We have machine learning, we have to transform the data. We have to secure it. We have multiple BI platforms over the years that's accumulated. And now we have generative AI. And this is just too complicated, okay? This data is locked into all these different things. So we have this lock-in, the costs are super high, and just too much complexity slowing us down. And in fact, the picture looks more like this. They have many, many of these things. And maybe it's actually sitting a little bit on-premise. Maybe it's sitting on other clouds. And they just want to make this much simpler. So that's the number one problem that Azure Databricks attempts to solve. OK, so I'll tell you how we solve that. Second thing they want to do is, OK, so they have this infrastructure. They also want to secure it. Governance and security is super important. So how do you do that when you have this sort of very fragmented picture? OK, and there's more cyber attacks happening, data privacy is top of mind for everyone. There's all kinds of regulation, including AI regulation coming. So they want to make sure that they can also satisfy the governance and the security and privacy. Specifically, they want to be able to do that on AI. And of course, everybody wants AI. And you might be already using Azure OpenAI, and you're getting good value, and these models are getting smarter and smarter. So we're maxing out on what I call general intelligence, AGI. Models that can answer anything about any data that's on the web, okay? However, when we talk to enterprises, they're saying that's amazing, but we want to be able to answer questions on our data. So the proprietary data that we have at my enterprise, I want the AI without hallucinations, with high quality to answer questions on that. And I want to do that at a reasonable cost, and I want to completely maintain my privacy. I don't want to give my data away. So from this lens, very few of them have actually made it into production. When you talk to them and we poll them, close to 85% say we're not in production yet with AI that really reliably can talk about our data. So those are the three things that Azure Databricks focuses on. And today, actually, it's the fastest growing service on Azure in data and AI, and it's actually adopted now by 60% of Fortune 500. So I want to tell you a little bit about how we address these three challenges: fragmentation, security governance, and then AI. Okay, so let's start with the first one, the fragmentation. How do we solve the fragmented picture? So step number one is own your own data, okay? Own your own data, which means instead of having it locked into all those circles, all those different vendors, all those different services over the years, just take your data, store it on very cost-effective storage in the cloud. And Azure Databricks has been really highly optimized in close collaboration with the engineering and product teams that build Azure Data Lake Storage, so ADLS. So it works seamlessly at scale for large Fortune 500 companies, super secure, super fast, on top of ADLS. You own the data, you put it there, and you store it in completely open source format. Whether it's in Delta Lake, which is a format that we started at Databricks a bunch of years ago, or Parquet, or Apache Iceberg, it doesn't matter. All three actually, all the creators are working at Databricks, and we can support all three of them. So that way, now you have your data in one place, one copy of it. You don't have these silos inside of the different services where you have to move data into the service. Okay, awesome. So you have your data in one place, but what about security and governance? How do we deal with security and governance? So this is where Unity Catalog comes in. I would say Unity Catalog is the most important service for Databricks all up. So Unity Catalog is not just governance for your data, for your tables and so on. It's actually governance for all your data assets, your machine learning models, your features for AI, your unstructured files, your notebooks, your dashboards. And it's not just security. It's not just access control and auditing. It's actually also collaboration. How do we discover? How do we in an organization avoid the problem where we're constantly fighting over, wait, what data did you use? How did you get that number? How do we discover data sets that have been siloed away inside of the enterprise? How do we deal with data quality? Track the lineage of all your data sets throughout all of Azure and do data quality monitoring to detect the errors in data early on, so we shift left. And then finally, super important, how do we do cost management? How do we really control budgets for our different BUs, do chargeback, and make sure that the IT department and the centralized organization can track the costs of your data infrastructure? And how do we do that with business semantics? So what I mean by business semantics is, how do we know where the authoritative answer to revenue or number of employees is? So where can we find a business glossary where you can find those terms defined for all of the enterprise? So that's what Unity Catalog is. Okay, so once you have your data in an open format and you are governing it with Unity Catalog, which we recently also open sourced, then you get what we call a lakehouse. Because now you can, on top of it, have many different AI solutions that use one copy of the data and it's secured and governed through Unity Catalog. You can do data warehousing with lots of different solutions on top of that. You can do ETL. You can use BI tools on top of that one copy of the data. So that's what the data lakehouse on Azure is, and it's now 100% serverless, so you don't have to manage any of these resources. Okay, so that was the lakehouse, and it's a really important foundation on top of which, when we combine that lakehouse with artificial intelligence and generative AI, we get something magical that we call data intelligence. So what is that? What does it mean to combine the lakehouse with AI? So let's look at that. What we mean by that is that you can actually take AI and really now democratize data and democratize AI in a way that was not possible before. So what do we mean by that? So democratized data means you shouldn't have to be a technical person in an organization to get value out of the data in AI. You should just be able to speak English or whatever your mother tongue is and speak to the platform and get the insights that you want. How many CEOs of Fortune 500 companies today can themselves ask in English or some other language, natural language, a question about the data and get the results back? They have to go to a data team now, and they have to wait for the results to come back in a dashboard. So we want to democratize access to that data. You shouldn't have to know Python or SQL. Okay, democratizing AI is different. It's not about everyone in the world getting AI, but rather we want to help those data teams be able to build their own AI. So the data and data science teams that know a little bit about this technology, they should be able to build their own AI that's not general intelligence only, but also data intelligence. So it can answer questions about their data that they have inside the enterprise. So that's what we call data intelligence. So that's how you get the data intelligence platform with built-in AI, data warehousing, ETL, and BI on top of this lakehouse foundation. So I'll walk you through each of these. So we already offer, as part of Azure Databricks, these 4 applications on top of the data intelligence platform. So I'll walk you through each of these, but you could also bring your own. Okay, so let's start with Mosaic AI. So this really is a platform to help you build your own agentic systems. So these agents, you typically build a multi-agent systems, and we help you build many, many agents as part of one system. The key thing about these agents is that they leverage the data that you have already in the lakehouse, and they go through the governance that you have in Unity Catalog so that you can secure and audit access to the data that you have inside the lakehouse. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, we want to help you to build custom evaluations on your agent system so that you know what is the quality, what is the reliability when it answers questions on my specific data. So not general evaluations on, math and history, but rather specifically for your use case. We can now build these, and we actually out of the box can give you LLM agents that are judges and can evaluate how you're doing on the actual answers of that system. Okay, and this works, and the agents can use proprietary models, open source models, all of them are available as part of Mosaic AI. So if you want to use Azure OpenAI, or if you want to use Claude from Anthropic, all of that is part of the platform. Okay, so that's how you do AI on top of the lakehouse. Let's talk about Databricks SQL. So the Databricks SQL is how you do data warehousing using Azure Databricks. What's special about that is you really get 10x better price performance on really highly concurrent workloads on top of your data in Azure. So how do we do that? How can we actually be so much faster? Well, the trick is it's really AI-driven optimizations. So instead of using classic data warehousing techniques, we're actually leveraging data intelligence, and the data intelligence understands how you're using the data inside Azure Databricks on top of ADLS, and it's reorganizing the data in the background. And when you're submitting SQL queries to this data warehouse from a BI tool, it actually optimizes those based on your previous patterns, again, using AI. So that helps us really do this much, much, much better. Just to give you an example, in the last 2 years only, we have gotten 73% faster on concurrent BI workloads compared to ourselves. So this platform is 73% faster on latency. Okay, so that's how you do data warehousing on top of the data intelligence platform. Let's talk about Lakeflow. We are very excited about Lakeflow because it comes now with native ingestion connectors, lets you get data out of whether it's Dynamics or Salesforce or Workday or NetSuite, any of these places, and get that data straight into your lakehouse on Azure, data stored in Azure Data Lake Storage, and now you have it in the lakehouse and you can start doing processing on it. These are super simple. We also support databases out of the box. So if you want to get data from SQL Server streamed in real-time fashion and always have it in your lakehouse, that works also, and it's part of Lakeflow. So it really provides ETL and orchestration for both batch and real-time workloads, and it's particularly good now at real-time workloads. Work that we've done in the last 2 years have helped us actually improve the latency on real-time workloads, several orders of magnitude down now. So a typical streaming query takes on the orders of 20 or 40 milliseconds, okay? So there's 1,000 milliseconds in a second, so this is really, really fast. Awesome. And then finally, what we're really excited about is a product called AI BI. So what AI BI is, it's business intelligent, beautiful dashboards built on your lakehouse. But what it has is that it's actually built in with an AI Genie that helps you actually get insights out of the data directly, okay? And the way Genie works is that you can actually in English just ask about your business data questions, and it gives you actually numbers and answers that are accurate. So how does it do that? Okay, so there's lots of copilots out there. There are lots of AI assistants out there in your industry. How does this get it right? And how does it know that it has a certified answer so that it's not hallucinating? Well, the way it does that is by actually being built on top of Mosaic AI, it continuously learns everything about your system. So it's looking at all the data that's coming in, and it's figuring out what's the data and what's the semantics of that data, okay? It looks at the lineage that you have in Unity Catalog, of all the terms that's used in your dashboards, and it builds a semantic model. And these agents then are an ensemble that work together in concert to leverage all this extra metadata in Databricks to get your answers right. And when it doesn't know, when it's unsure, it will actually seek for clarifications. But the most important part is that it actually remembers and learns as you're using the system. So as you keep going back to those dashboards and asking questions, it learns over time, it gets smarter and smarter and smarter, and it gets more and more answers right. And there's always a way to go verify by opening it up and looking under the hood, the SQL queries that it's generating. So you can actually have people that go in and make sure that this is correct. So to wrap up, that's the Databricks data intelligence platform on Azure, built on Azure Data Lake Storage and governed by Unity Catalog, and then built-in applications on top, but it's really highly integrated with everything in the ecosystem. So you can bring other Azure services that it's highly integrated with. If you want to use it with Microsoft Power BI, it's highly integrated with that. It's highly integrated with all the other services of Azure. So hopefully you can have a really seamless experience with the Databricks data intelligence platform.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ali. And so data intelligence platform with the integration throughout the Azure stack and ecosystem really simplifies the customer's experience and the need requirement of all data and AI and analytics. So what else do you see Lakehouse data intelligence simplifying over that next few years?
Well, I think what it really helps with primarily, Lindsey, is that you can democratize this access to more people in the organization. Data and AI today is too complicated, actually, in the industry. As an industry as a whole, you need to be technical. You need to understand technical terms. But with data intelligence, I really think that we can now broaden this to much bigger audiences inside the organizations that can just leverage the data and AI without having to be experts, without having to know SQL, without having to know Python, and they can do their own data science. So I think that democratization is going to be a game changer for our industry.
That's really exciting. We're looking forward to sure. Customers are all looking forward to it. I don't know if I have time for one more question.
Sure.
Yeah, so what are the key mistakes to avoid when customer wants trying to put the Gen AI into production?
Yeah, so what I would say is there are different types of Gen AI applications. I think I would start with looking at, is what you're building really essential? Do you have any secret sauce for your organization? So your enterprise, do you have special data or customer relationship where you have unique position to build this? If you have that, because the reason I bring it up, many organizations have been building things that I think there will be a service for in the future. And it's sort of like 2007 when iPhone came out and people would say, hey, there's an app for that. Well, I think there's going to be a Gen AI app for many of these things. So we should be careful about which ones we want to build. But assuming that there's data that your organization has and there's a strategic generative AI application that you want to build for your enterprise, and there are many of those. I think in every organization, there are massive amounts of opportunities. Then I think you need a strong team. And I think that you actually need to build engineer tech. So this is going to be just like engineering anything else. You can't just roll it out to production. It could have massive downstream effects. So you need to have proper testing. You need to have staging to production practices, CI/CD. That's number one. So you will need a technical team that knows how to do those things and get those things right. Second thing I would say is it's super important to focus on evaluations. Like in classic software, when we push something to production, we run tests to make sure, is the software working? And then we ship it to production if it's working. Here, it's an AI model. It's a generative AI model. So how do we know? So we need to have an evaluation that tells us that this model is doing well right now. We can ship it into production. And when we get more data, we can use that evaluation to see, is my results improving the accuracy or are they deteriorating it? So I think we don't pay enough attention to evaluations and benchmarks over a particular use case that we want to ship. And then, of course, it's always people that have to do this, and we have to get people to adopt the technology. So there are always organizational challenges that you can't just solve with software and technology. So that requires great leadership in those organizations. But I can see the industry actually getting better and better at it. This year is much more exciting, and next year is going to be much more exciting than, say, 2023, where everybody was just left and right launching Gen AI projects, many of which maybe now we look back and say, maybe we shouldn't have launched that project.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ali. And things moving so fast. And Azure Databricks is one platform can do all this together in one place, one product.
Thank you so much.
Yep.
Really, really excited about where we're headed together on the Azure stack.
Thank you so much, Ali. We will switch. I think we hung up this one. Let me just hang up. We're going back to our slides. There we go. 1 second. All right. Of course, I think it's so important to have Ali here. Of course, run over a little bit of time than our scheduled time. What happened to my slides? OK, it's back. So we're going to move on. We're going to probably run a little faster. But we do have very exciting customer case study with Minecraft. So I think we'll move our announcement a little faster, so give time to Minecraft. So we're very, very excited to announce ungated public preview of Azure Databricks Clean Room. It's different from the confidential computing Clean Room just announced. Azure Databricks obviously support confidential computing, one of the only data services support confidential computing. And the Clean Room, Databricks Clean Room uses Delta Share and serverless compute. So provide an isolated environment for multi-party and different organizations to create computation on top of data without actually access the underlying data, each other's data. So this way unleashes the data sharing across organization for the multi-party metadata training and sharing for machine learning, GenAI. Robert?
Yeah, I think you said most of it. Let's move on to the presentation.
OK, maybe we'll just move on. OK, data sharing. And here it's a multi-cloud, right? Because you can create clean room. You can literally share the clean room across cloud. And it's secure, and you can actually assign not only data asset, also approved compute. And the notebook runs in the clean room need approved by both parties. I'm just going to do a quick demo to show you how it works. And so you will see in public preview, now you see a clean room tab in Unity Catalog. And what you do, you can create a clean room, which is an isolated environment managed by Azure Databricks, just like any other SaaS service, right? You can pick which region you want to run it on. In this case, so I pick Canada Central. And then you need to create identifier. This is the GUIDs, whatever used for you to actually share with your partner, right? If you're Walmart, you want to share your audience analytics, which one of your CPG, for example, Mars or Pepsi, right? Then the clean room is created, is locked down, and from this point, you can add the data assets. And pick whatever data that's actually allow viewing access. Generally, you're probably going to create access to computational results and add to the clean room for in this case. And the science, you can add actually library, computation library as well. And from here point, let's say, you know what, we want to actually make it both easy and approved, right? We don't want any arbitrary compute to run on this clean room, no exfiltration of data. That's important, right? So now let's create a notebook, and we're going to share through this clean room. And you're going to add approved library functions you want your collaborator to use. You can share this notebook to more than one collaborators, right? Now you see the notebook. And in this particular case, just for example, my CPG partner actually runs Databricks. Now we added the notebook to the clean room. So now I want to share this with my CPG partner. Happens to be this one runs Databricks on AWS. We're going to move them all to Azure Databricks, right? Renato, everybody in AWS is going to move to Azure Databricks. And in this case, so I shared with my CPG partner over in AWS. And as you can see, right, because I gave them this shared identifier, he see the same clean room, data assets, and you can add something, basically share back, or you can add more assets into the clean room. It will be visible to all the collaborator. And then he can go see, add additional assets from his. And he would have a visibility to the assets already being added to the clean room. Now let's go look at the notebook. I should move this along. So you see the same notebook and being approved, being shared, and you can run the computation. It's literally have exact same user interface you get used to with the data sharing Unity catalog. So let's go run this. And the output, and you can designate where the output goes to. And it can go to your local storage. It's generally just go to a data frame, right? And so the notebook is run, and you can see the chart in the notebook because you added all the plug-in. And no direct access to each other's data. This is the power of clean room. So now let's talk about our reference case study. Minecraft literally is the whole time best-selling game. Sold more than 300 million copies, right up there with Tetris. I know I grew up with Tetris, I still like Tetris. And Databricks is a key platform for Minecraft because there's just so many telemetry, everything about optimizing player experience. And because a player, this is no storyline game, right? Like the player can create anything. That's why in classroom, teacher uses it. So tons of telemetry need to be processed in real time and to analyze the player experience, to match players and all that, right? Everything got moved to Azure Databricks, and we published this case study about 2 years ago. 60% of reduction in data processing time. Along the way, saved lots of cost. And because the way Databricks scales, right? Not like you add more 10 times the data, suddenly it will go slower. The scale is hyperlinear scale. It's amazing to see. And because all data together, over the past 2 years, and Minecraft built lots of AI agents, co-pilots on top of Databricks using Azure OpenAI and their own fine-tuned model and everything. Let's hear from Francisco. He can't be here. Chicago.
Hi everyone, my name is Francisco Rios. I am the head of data over at Mojang Studios, and we are the makers of Minecraft. Before we jump into a few demos, I'd love to talk to you a little bit about how we're using Azure Databricks to drive artificial intelligence and machine learning efforts in the organization. But before we do that, I'd love to talk to you about what Minecraft is. In case you've been living under a rock, Minecraft is the original open world video game. And what this means is that this is a sandbox video game where players are allowed to do whatever they want in the game. There's no storyline, there's no beginning, no end. They can build homes if they want to, they can craft, they can fight mobs or engage with their friends. This game is also available in mobile, console, PC, and cloud endpoints. We're operating in over 22 different endpoints. That means that players can roam across devices and can engage with players across multiple platforms. Minecraft is also massive and also incredibly diverse. We see every single country in the world represented in the Minecraft audience and player base. And last but not least, Minecraft is the best-selling game of all time, with over 300 million copies sold, right up there with Tetris and some of the most popular video games in history. So now let me tell you a little bit about how we're using Azure Databricks to drive AI and ML in the studio. We have driven our initiatives across 3 different pillars: workflows and productivity. These are tools and applications that help us become better at our jobs. These are business applications like copilots and other chat type of applications. Internal tools leverage the internal corpus of information that we have built over the years, and this can be custom, fine-tuned, or RAG type of applications for internal purposes. This also includes AI assistants for coding and other purposes, and you're going to see a little bit of that over the next few minutes. And last but not least, player experiences. We're super excited to share with the world over the next few weeks and months some of the player experiences that are actually leveraging LLM-based applications. This includes player support virtual assistant that will be launching in Minecraft.net over the upcoming months. And currently in private preview, the Minecraft for Education Lesson Crafter. This is an application that is going to help teachers all over the world craft experiences and lesson plans for students in Minecraft for Education. We're happy to see you here. Hope you enjoy the next few demos.
Yeah, so we're really looking forward to Lessons Crafter because it's going to be a big announcement. We're going to have a media moment, so we're now going to show you here. So let's move forward. Before we actually show you the demo, I want Robert to explain a little bit about the landscape of Mosaic AI features, and we're going to show you a demo how Minecraft is using them. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think a few things to call out here. So first of all, everything in the platform is there to kind of make you productive and successful with these use cases. So here you can see that we have the assistant built in, which is going to help you write your code, debug things. And the AI gateway, this basically gives you access to all of those models, the open models, the commercial models out there. You can take a table and you can choose an embedding model, and then you can generate a vector table from that. And that vector database can basically be used with the serving endpoint to connect to serve the use cases as they come in. This is all built on top of the data platform, which is governed across. And all of these separate pieces in here, they are all governed through Unity Catalog as well. So this basically means like when you're looking at your application end to end, and if you want to, let's say you have some kind of issue or you want to see the performance, you can track this all the way back across the stack. So from your, from your data ingestion, your feature engineering, your model training, until that inference, all the way across. So this is what makes folks extremely productive within the platform in settling these use cases we saw from Minecraft as well.
Yeah, thank you. So from left to right, fully no code. The assistant Genie, no code. Write a little bit of code with the gateway and model serving, and you read your RAG applications with vector search and structured search. And if you want to go all out with your PhD data scientist, build your own model, fine-tune your models.
Yeah, and here I think just a few things highlighted, and this is kind of like, this is what a data intelligence platform is bringing you. So the assistant, and one of the things I really like about the assistant is that, everyone is used to that assistant on the side, and you kind of like, that's the starting place, like I want to debug this, or I have an idea, how do I, write code for that? But you can see the assistant across the platform, as well as being as that side panel, so you can always jump and get help, is coming more and more in line. So, Ghost Text is powered by this as well. And what you'll notice in Databricks that you won't see in other platforms is just how intuitive this is. And this is because it's all powered by that, your data and the metadata that's collected in Unity Catalog. And it respects those ACLs and everything that your users have. This is also meta. That's it. We use, we have a fine-trained model, a smaller model for generating metadata about your tables and columns. So when you bring your data assets in, no one has time. Most people don't have time to go and like describe all of their tables, describe all of their columns. So this will basically allow you to use the AI within the system, say like generate the metadata for these tables and columns. And that's super important because when someone writes a query when someone does a search, they're going to be using terms that are familiar to them. But with that metadata and using those AI models, this is what a compound system is. We're kind of building up on all these things. It's able to interpret, oh, actually, you meant this. And I can look at I can look at the data model, and I can see how these things are connected. So I need this. And that's how it kind of like builds from there. For the business teams, the same concepts apply. But if we look at the AI BI dashboards, this is basically, you take a data set, you build out your model, you say like, these are the tables that I want to have included. And then it's like super quick and easy to kind of like drag and drop and create those visualizations on the dashboard. Like it's really what you would expect. All the editing is in the web. It's super fast, it's slick. But where it gets really interesting is you're creating those things. It's like, hey, I need a graphic to describe this, or I want to drill down on that. You can just use the assistant inline on those tiles as you're generating them to describe what you want it to do. And you can further configure it with the side panel as well if there are options that you prefer to click through. But you'll just see like how the assistant, like inline there again, is just helping you create all those widgets and things that you need. And where this gets really interesting, that data model there, you can just go and start asking it questions as well. So you can serve up that dashboard to someone, serve that report, and they can start asking questions of that data in the dashboard. And what's extremely powerful here is that the data that's in that model, that's what you're going to be querying. But the context that you need, that might extend beyond that model. But that information is captured in Unity Catalog. That information of how those tables are joined together, how users actually query that data, what's popular, all that kind of stuff is used. And what happens here, we take that context and then we send it to a model to generate the SQL. That SQL comes back, and then that SQL gets executed, and you see the results. It will describe in English or like what steps it took to actually generate that query. And then you'll run the query, and if you want to look at the SQL. And that's one of the really useful things at the moment is you get that feedback loop. No? So the folks that understand SQL, they can say, that's the right query. They can give it a thumbs up. And that's all going to be reinforcing the system. And if it gets,
sorry.
If it gets something,
if
it gets something wrong, you can give it an instruction, and that will be captured in that data set as well, so that the next time it understands what you meant, and it will improve.
Yeah.
Back to you, Lindsay.
Thank you, because I saw the clock ticking. So I'm going to skip the assistant demo with Minecraft. They're using it to get their both analysts and their developers writing code, literally. It's really cool. But I just want to make sure we get to the agent part. And so the model serving, and this is actually very, very important for Azure OpenAI integration, because the GPT and Azure OpenAI 4.0 still one of the best model and on this planet. I know there's all the other model out there. You can do A/B testing within Databricks, right? So what Minecraft did is leverage all the different models, especially available on Azure, and they use lots of GPT 4.0 and the GPT, the new GPT Turbo. And in order for them to actually build their Copilot. And I'm pretty sure lots of you probably tried to build a gateway and started with API management, but it's very different when you're actually trying to, with your IT information technology, try to manage how your customer actually use these, your internal user, right? Using these large language models served as APIs, like foundation models, and you want to track the usage. You want to actually limit the permission, and you want to actually limit the cost, because sometimes before you know it, right, all the token used up, your budget is burned up, you haven't really did anything yet. So AI Gateway allow you to track, log, auditing, and monitor and lock down exfiltration. You actually can set guardrails for PII data not allowed to actually send to this foundational model API. And it's very cutting edge. This is the only commercial platform offer such actual capability. I know AI Foundry in Azure is also considering, but this is in preview already.
And just to call out here, the A/B testing of those models. Yeah? So you can
critical.
Send different amounts of traffic to each of those models and see the results. And you have fallback as well if the model isn't performing. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. So let's show you how Mojang Studio is using it.
How we're using our Databricks environment to help us understand player sentiment at scale. And I'm going to give you a real world example. In around April of 2023, we launched a new game. It was called Minecraft Legends. And this game came with a whole lot of feedback from a whole lot of different sources. So for example, we get feedback from our stores where we're selling products. We also get feedback on social media, again, also through our player support site. And one of the things we were really excited about is integration with large language models inside our Azure Databricks environment allows us to really parse through the information at scale, not only translate it into relevant information that our decision makers can use. Sometimes we translate things into from different languages into English so that our analysts can understand it as well. But the nice thing about also intersecting LLMs with some of the feedback that we're capturing at scale is that it helps us paint an objective view around sentiment and the opinions of our players globally. So I'm going to jump into a quick demo again around how we're doing some of this inside the Databricks environment. This is an example of sentiment analysis where we are using the internal endpoints of our Databricks environment. You can quickly see here that we're using the Mixtral 7 billion parameter LLM inside our Databricks environment. And what we're doing here is we're passing through about 400 lines of feedback from a specific product that was trialed by some of our players. And then we're tagging all of that information as positive, neutral, or negative. So this is really cool use of a large language model that is readily accessible inside the Databricks environment. Those endpoints are available through a combination of the machine learning features, models, and serving. So we're able to access different LLMs through this same environment where our data resides. So another piece that's really, really cool is you could potentially run a visualization here where you naturally very quickly can infer whether sentiment is positive, negative, or neutral. And there are other types of visualizations, not just bar charts, but you could also run pie charts, you name it. So this is also a really good example of where you're intersecting artificial intelligence and analytics inside the same environment. Great. The next piece that I want to cover with all of you is how we use.
Sorry, let's move forward. Yeah, because the Mistral is lower cost, so easier to set the demo up. So we GA'd vector search. This is what we use to actually critical capability used to build a RAG agent. I will skip past this because we have 2 minutes left. I want to get to the agent framework of Databricks. And it's a unified platform to build agent systems. Multi-agent systems, you know what's the difference the agent from the agents from a single RAG system is be able to iterate and be able to take feedback and take actions and iterate just like human. Have a plan and we iterate through it. We can use different models. And with Databricks agent framework, you actually have governance and everything built in together all in one place. And let's hear it from Nicholas.
Hi, everyone. Nick here, and today I'm going to give you a really brief tour on the agent evaluation framework. First, in order to evaluate something, we need a ground truth data set. Now, here's an example of what that might look like. Let's say you have some products, what colors are available for our Urban Explorer jacket, and then some facts. These are the 3 colors it's available in. Now, if you don't have this ground truth data, we do also have ways via our synthetic data API to help you create it, so that you can use it for the evaluation.
The ground truth is important.
So once you have this ground truth data, you need to give your subject matter experts a way to improve that ground truth data set and to verify that the ground truth data set is correct. For that, we have our managed eval UI. What this lets you do, go to continue review. It actually lets you review all of your ground truth data and gives the SMEs a chance to say this is a good question or this is not a good question. And what this lets you do is prune your ground truth data set. Now, once you have your ground truth data set, you can run your agent evaluation against it. So what you're looking at here is a combination of ML flow and your agent using your ground truth data set to cover a big swath of questions and tell you how well your agent is performing. Overall, looks like 69%, right? And then it tells you the root cause of anything that it deemed not good. Now, these are LLMs that are being used as judges, and you can see that for each specific part, you can take a deeper dive into figuring out what might have gone wrong with this response, and that way you know what to tweak and improve for your next iteration of the agent. Now, what does that look like? Let's say you've taken another pass, Now what you can do is you can actually compare your runs, and you can see that, sorry that I had that filtered. Overall, we have improved by 6.5%. Here are the changes in root causes. And if you want to dive deeper into what improved or what might not have improved, you can always take that.
So what's important here, you don't have to have separate system. So
that
together.
are now passing. Now, once all of this is done, you are happy with your agent. You can deploy it behind Mosaic AI model serving, which also lets you use the AI gateway to put things like AI guardrails, payload logging, however.
So I will stop there because our time is up, music is up. Thank you so much for sticking with us. I know we're a little rushed.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And if you want to know more about the integration with Databricks and Azure, come to our session tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And we're going to go over Power BI and ADF and Fabric and all those things, okay?